Yay, okay. Let's start.
Okay. And now we're back. All right, are we good to go? Hi everyone, so welcome to Cha With CTC. This is an event that we're holding to celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so we're just going to be talking about some Asian American related topics today. So we're just going to do some introductions really quickly. I will be your host for today. So hello, my name is Robin. I'm part of CTC and I am a senior this year, so I'll be graduating next week. So this discussion will be about Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage, and we wanted to bring together a bunch of people from different Asian orgs on campus to get their perspectives on what it's like to be Asian American. This particular month was founded in 1978 to celebrate Asian American culture. And without further ado, I'm going to have the different panelists introduce themselves.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin. I'm a rising junior and I'm an external PR for PUSO.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm part of KSA and I'm gonna be a sophomore soon.
Hi, I'm Emily and I'm from CASB, and next year I'm going to be a senior and I'm VP.
Okay.
Hello, my name's Tyler. I'm from JSO and I'm a rising junior. I'm going to be VP next year.
Should I go or she's here now?
Yeah, you can go, and then Stephanie, we're going to have you introduce yourself to everyone.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Charles. I'm a junior. I was the president of TSA. I'm a rising senior.
Hi guys, I'm Stephanie. I'm going to be event coordinator for BSA next year.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Will. I'm a rising senior. I'm going to be the VP for ASA next year.
Hello, I'm Michael, and I'm from China Blue. I'll just be a cabinet member.
So thank you for introducing yourselves. And now it wouldn't be a CTC event if we didn't have an icebreaker. So we're going to ask all the panelists to participate. We're going to play the 5-finger game. Okay, well, you do have to unmute yourselves for this. You can unmute yourself for like your turn, or if you want to keep it unmuted the whole time, you can do that as well. It's basically the opposite of never have I ever. So you hold up 5 fingers and you say something that has happened to you or you've done, and it has to be within the context of being Asian American. For example, if you've ever had someone say ni hao to you, then you would put a finger down for that. Does that make sense? Oh, okay. Do you have questions? You can ask questions, and first unmute yourselves though, because I don't know.
What do you mean by like? So never have I ever had ni hao said to me? Like?
Oh no, it's the opposite of never have I ever. So instead of saying something you've never done, you say something you have ever done.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll go in the order that I see you guys in. So if you don't mind, I'll just call on your names then. So yeah, 5 fingers. So that's why it's called the 5-finger game. Yay! Okay, so have you ever been to your home country? Oh, I have ever been to my home country. Yeah. Okay. The next person would be Lauren.
Have you? I have ate non-Asian food with chopsticks.
Okay, next would be Charles.
Oh, do you speak, or put your finger down if you speak your mother tongue at home?
Okay, Emily.
Put a finger down if you brought, you know, when you had school lunch, like in like high school or middle school, and you brought like an Asian food, and everyone was like, "Ew, why does it smell?"
Kevin?
I have tried to introduce my non-Asian friends to my cultural food.
Okay. Michael?
think, put a finger down if you've lived for more than 1 year in your native country.
Okay, do we have people who are out? Oh, okay, cool. For those of you who have no fingers left, can you just share a fun fact about your culture? So we'll start with Charles and then Michael.
Oof. Night markets in Taiwan are there 24/7, 365. They never close, I think, or something close to that. So that's my fun fact.
Cool. What about you, Michael?
So for me, I don't know too much, but it's really just like we have a lot of diverse food, and since I'm from China and I'm from Fuzhou of China, so we just have a lot of seafood all the time. So
Cool, thanks for sharing. And I think next is Stephanie. Just share an have you ever.
Have you ever worn the traditional clothing of your culture?
Okay, who has, I think Kevin? Okay, can you share a fun fact about your culture?
Well, the Philippines, for those who don't know, before 100 years ago, it was under a Spanish colony for 500 years. So Filipino culture has a lot of Spanish influences, such as last names, foods, words, and language. So.
Cool, thanks for sharing. I think it's my turn now, right? Has everyone gone? At least once? Okay, put a finger down if you've ever had to wear slippers inside your house or another person's house. Oh wait, okay, did everyone just get out? Okay, can the people who just got out now just raise their hands so I can see who's there? Okay. Okay, I'll call on you guys and then can you share a fun fact about your culture? So Lauren?
Fun fact, mukbang started from Korea and now it's like so widely known and a lot of people do it.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. Emily?
So I don't know if everyone follows this, but there's like these Chinese superstitions where you're not supposed to gift someone you're not supposed to gift like your best friend shoes or watches, because if you give them shoes, they're gonna like walk out of your life. And if you give them like a watch, you're gonna run out of time with them or something. So my family like follows that. But I don't know if everyone else does. Yeah.
Cool, thanks for sharing. What about you, Tyler?
I mean, sushi's great, but the best way to eat sushi is off a conveyor belt, where like infinite sushi comes out of the kitchen.
That sounds amazing.
You ever see that?
Okay, did anyone else get out for this round? Oh, okay, Will.
I don't know if this is really a fun fact, but I'm also from Fuzhou, and back where I used to live, we didn't have any crosswalk signs, like, you know, like the pedestrian signs. So everyone would just have to like walk through nonstop traffic, and I didn't know like when it was safe to go, so I would have to wait until a stranger on the street would be crossing, like a native, and I would just follow him.
Oh, wow, that's pretty scary. That's, wow. Okay, thanks for sharing. I guess I got out too, so I'll share a fun fact about Cantonese culture. This event is called Yum Cha with CTC, which literally translates to drinking yum and cha tea. And as an American translation, it could be like sipping tea or spilling tea, which is what we're going to be doing today. But it also means having dim sum with like your family or your friends. It's just like a casual way to say that. Okay, so we have to determine a winner for this round. So can the people who just got out now do one more round of the 5-finger game, and then we will announce who the winner is. So that would be Lauren, Emily, Tyler, and Will. Go next to Emily then.
Put a finger down if, wait, do I have to, like, if I say it, do I have to have done it or no?
Yes.
Oh, wait. Put a finger down if you have noodles or rice every day.
Okay, and then we'll go to Tyler.
So wait, this is if I've done it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Put a finger down if you've ever like taken your school lunch and sold it to your friends.
Whoa, that's so entrepreneurial.
No, like my mom would make me rice balls sometimes, and my friends loved them, so I would sell them for $1 every now and then.
Wow, that's so business minded. Okay, I think next is Will.
I have been yelled at by my parents in both Chinese and English before.
Oh, relatable. Okay, and Lauren, can we come back to you?
Yeah, put a finger down if you've ever used rice as glue on your projects.
Yep. Tyler?
Put a finger down. I don't know if you get money for Lunar New Year.
Okay, Will?
Wait, it's my turn again?
Yeah, it goes Lauren, Emily, Tyler, Will. So we're just gonna go in that circle.
Ever been beat by a clothes hanger? Not a clothes hanger?
Oh, okay. Lauren?
Put a finger down if you've ever been to a spa with your friends naked.
Okay, Emily?
Put a finger down if you've ever had to represent your organization in one of those pageants at Sony.
Okay, so who do we have left? Okay. Will, do you want to share another fun fact about your culture?
Robin, do you want someone from the participants to suggest one?
Sure, if they want to. I haven't been checking the chat. Oh, did someone say something? If you do want to share one as a participant, you can just unmute yourselves and say something.
I can just give a quick fun fact. I guess a lot of my injuries when I was a kid was healed by Tiger Balm. Like we use Tiger Balm for everything.
Nice. Okay, so let's do one more round and then we'll announce the winner then. Are you guys okay with that, or are you guys done thinking about this? That's cool too.
Yiling put a suggestion.
Oh, okay. This one will be, Yiling, do you just want to read it?
Put a finger down if you were ever asked math problems just because you're Asian.
Okay, so who still has fingers left? Lauren and Tyler. Okay, cool. Emily, do you want to share a fun fact?
So I'm also Canto, so dim sum in Chinese, it's like where it's kind of like a brunch for like Chinese people, and it's where like people come and push food around in carts so that you never have to get up and like the food comes to you.
Yes, such a good thing. Okay, so I think we have 2 more people left. Do we have any other have you evers suggested by the audience?
Put a finger down if you know a dog named Coco.
Okay, and I think we have our winner. So congratulations, Tyler. Okay, Lauren, do you want to share another fun fact about your culture?
Sure. Fun fact would be there are a lot of street food in Korea, and it's really, really cheap. And like there's also like this pojang matcha. It's really famous, and you just go in a tent on the street and you just eat like really cheap food.
Oh, cool. Thanks for sharing. And Tyler, if you want to share, you can as well. Another fun fact.
I don't know if anybody's been to Nada Park, but like there's like deer at this park. If you bow, they'll bow because they love food. But I don't know, the deer will bow back to you sometimes if you're lucky.
Oh, that's so cool. Have you done that before? Like bow to them?
No, I've never been there, but I've had plenty of friends who've been.
Oh, that sounds so interesting. Okay, well, as the winner of this icebreaker, thank you guys all for participating. You will be able to have CTC reps go to your events and have them also advertise it for you. So yeah, now you have the CTC cabinet at your disposal to do some PR for your club. So
Perfect.
yeah. Yay. Okay, so now we're gonna start the main portion of our program, which is the discussion part. Just as like a little reminder, this is a safe place. So like if you want to share something and you don't want it to be recorded, just let us know. And again, that goes for the audience members too. Like if you want to share something too, like feel free to. And also for everyone, just make sure that you're listening respectfully and we're not here to judge. Okay, so the inspiration for these topics came from AAPIs, which is an East Coast conference for Asian American orgs. And I'd gone this past year with a couple of you guys. And the two workshops I attended were on intergenerational trauma and rave culture. So they seem kind of like different, but because I attended those and know a little bit about them, that's going to be the topics of discussion today. So the first thing we're going to discuss is rave culture. As like a brief introduction, I feel like being at Stony Brook, there's been like, or when I went to Stony Brook, that's when I was exposed for the first time to like rave culture, and I realized that it actually was a culture. And it wasn't until I went to ICASU that I started to examine it within the context of Asian Americans, because I think one of the questions that was brought up at the workshop I attended was, why are there so many Asians, like in proportion to, I guess, people of other different ethnicities in attendance at raves? And so I'm going to ask Emily to answer this question first, because I know that she was at the workshop with me. But what do you think of raves? And then we can go through the rest of the panel to get your responses.
So I was also at this conference, and I did attend this conversation about rave culture among Asian Americans. And I think that there's kind of a negative connotation with raving because of the drug use at raves. But I think that what we stand for in the bigger picture, or what is important, like how we all come together at this festival, and it's just like very fun and like lighthearted energy.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I think. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Why do I personally, or why do I think people go?
You can speak from your own experiences, if you have, and then for those who don't, you can think about.
I've only been going for like a year, but I think for me, it's just because I've been listening to EDM like my whole life, and then when I came here, it was, especially in Stony, everybody's really stressed out, going to like STEM classes and stuff. It's a good way to just forget all about that and escape. I'm not really sure why there's so many Asians. I was kind of surprised when I started going, especially for certain artists like Millennium and Griffin and stuff, that the crowd is like 85% Asian. I was kind of surprised. So I'm not sure why on that aspect, actually. But yeah, that's my input.
Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else have anything to add about what you like about raves, or why you think there's such a strong Asian population that turns up to these?
I just wanted to say, I think that rave culture, it's it's very Asian centric because I feel like we all just come together and it's a great thing where we can all just feel comfortable with each other, our own people. And it's just a really great thing that we can connect with each other, especially through music. And I think rave culture really gives us that opportunity where we all have like the same interests, but then we all have like similar backgrounds, so we can all connect, especially with like certain songs. I feel there's like a certain like mood that is shared between a lot of people. So yeah, I think it's just really great.
Thanks for sharing, David. I think you bring up a good point about people connecting with each other, because I think, well, one of the points that was brought up in the workshop was that rave culture is very like plur, which is like peace, love, unity, and respect. And I think those are like pillars of like just being a decent human that I think are promoted at raves. And I think in terms of like the Asian American context, like as minorities, the point of being a minority is, I guess, you're not in the majority, which means that I guess you face certain, I guess, prejudices that you wouldn't normally, I guess, if you were part of the majority. And I think, well, I guess for me, I'm trying to examine the connection between, I guess, pluriculture and how that sort of helps people feel like they belong. Does anyone have any other thoughts? I'm still trying to figure this out myself.
I feel like it's a way for like Asian Americans to feel more Americanized, because it's kind of like when we're here, we're seen as like Asians, but when we go back to our like motherland or like wherever you're from, you're seen as American. So it's kind of like we don't fit in anywhere. So I feel like raving in America is like a way for Asians to feel more Americanized. Yeah.
That brings up an interesting point. So I guess for everyone in the panel or even the audience too, what do you guys think of the concept of being Americanized, and how has that shaped like how you viewed your own identity as someone of Asian descent or other descent and an American at the same time?
I definitely agree with Emily. Like, I feel like here we're viewed like when we go back, we also like don't belong. So for a long time, I was just like kind of confused where I actually belong. I feel like if you just accept both cultures, like your own mother culture, and then like like the fact that you're American, it just like you can embody more, I suppose.
Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, going off of that, I think like Asians, in terms of expectations, whether it comes from their relatives, their parents, or themselves, are taught to be a little bit more like reserved and disciplined and generally not act out there. So I feel like raves are a good way for people to like break out of that, especially when they find their freedom in college.
I just want to say that I read a post on Facebook the other day that was kind of accurate. Like, basically, we've been raised like our whole life, like under our strict Asian parents, and like when we go off to college, like that's like when we kind of go crazy. And like I feel like music festivals, like any kind of festival, is like the ultimate place where you can just do whatever you want in terms of anything. And I feel like you can always find communities within like these music festivals. Like, just because like you see a lot of Asian people doesn't mean that like there's not a lot of other races there. It's just that I feel like we gravitate towards other Asian people we see there, I guess. Does that make sense?
So then I guess for everyone, since we already touched on, I guess, why raves are so popular, what's the main reason why you go to raves? For those who do.
Well, I guess I'll start off. So I've only been to 3 raves, and I think the main reason why I went was because all my other friends were going. So it's kind of like, well, I like the music, but I guess I didn't like the fact that like everyone was so close to me and like they're all sweaty and like gross.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's kind of why I don't like them. But I do like being with my friends and just like experiencing the same music.
Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had my name is Alicia, by the way. I had a similar experience to Emily. like the first rave I went to was a festival, so it was like multiple artists, and I didn't really know about EDM at the time, but like all my friends were going, so I was like, why not? Like I'm with my friends, so it should be fine. But like when I heard the music, that's when I started listening to it more and more. So I would go to like future raves with friends, so it was like a double win, you know? Yeah, I feel like that's why most Asians like go, because like their friends introduced them to it, and then like it's just such a fun environment when you are there with friends. Yeah, that's my personal experience.
Well, thanks for sharing. I think it's definitely like the case that if you're friends with a lot of people who are Asian, or you happen to go to like a rave and like you go with your friends, then by I guess extension, the people that you go with are Asian too. So then would you say it's just a product of like there being a lot of Asians at raves is a product of just being friends with a lot of Asians and going to the raves with them just because you like it? Or do you think there's a larger reason why there's so many like Asians who are present in these festivals? Or I guess while you're thinking about that, for those who haven't been to raves, if like I guess since you have an outside perspective, why might you think that there's like a higher population of Asians there? Like, does it have to do with the music, or I guess how people dress, or if there's like an air of like anonymity at these concerts?
Yeah, what I think is that like Will said before, it's really just us Asians just to de-stress a little. Because when we were raised up, we're always told to focus on studying, just do whatever you can to get that top grade in the school. So we're just constantly put under pressure. And then once you're off to college, you know, your parents aren't really watching over you 24/7. So you just really take the opportunity to just de-stress a little.
Cool. Thanks
Yeah,
for
I
sharing.
agree with Will and Charles. I think raves are a good outlet for people who have been under current stress, like Michael said, to go out there and actually like express the emotions that they may or may not been able to express at home, maybe because of language barriers or just like a cultural mindset.
That makes sense. I feel like, I guess for some who aren't, I guess, aware, what do you mean by, I guess, the difference between the environment of home and being able to express yourselves? Like, is there, if you guys are comfortable sharing, is there a reason at home why you're not able to express yourselves? Or, I mean, for me personally, like, I definitely, I think, behave differently at school than I do with my parents, just because I guess they're older and they've just seen more, and I feel like they wouldn't really care about, I don't know, me staying up late and doing crazy things. But I guess more specifically, does anyone have anything to share about that?
I mean, this could go off of raves, but I guess just in general, like when it comes to growing up at home, uh, Asian parents would usually have different values that they've been conditioned to uphold because a lot of Asian parents are immigrants. So coming into the US, like, and then growing up as a kid in the US with Asian parents, you'd normally, um, I guess you'd notice that kids in school would act a lot differently and value other things and pursue other things compared to what your parents would expect you to try to reach for. Um, so I guess like I wouldn't say that you're trying to move away from your parents in that sense, but it's just like there may or may not be like a part of people that have not been able to express like growing up. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, I agree with that because I remember the stark difference between when I was growing up in Taiwan and when I moved here is that I think people in Asia are generally just expected to be a little bit more reserved, not really express themselves, just keep to themselves a little bit more. When I moved here, there was a lot more emphasis on expressing yourself, partying, doing stuff you enjoy, and being outgoing and stuff like that. That was a lot more important here than it was in Taiwan. So I guess for Asian Americans, it's kind of a way to explore the American side in the sense that you have more freedom to express yourself, do the things you want, but those things sometimes don't align with what your parents or what your culture expects of you to behave like. So
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else have anything else to add?
just going off what Kevin and Charles said, like when we're growing up, we don't really have like opportunities to say yes to like hangouts or like anything that would expose you to like any kind of new situation. So for example, like at least in my case, like Mondays through Fridays, like I couldn't really go outside. I had to stay home. I had to study. I had to do homework. I really couldn't like explore like the world basically. So when I came to college, like I had a lot more opportunities to say yes to things like hanging out with your friends or like going to party or like going to raves. So like I would say like it's not like an act of defiance where like you choose to go to raves to like be like, oh, like now that I'm in college, you know, like I'm gonna go ham. It's more like I feel like your friends invite you, like as Alicia said before, like your friends like first introduce you by saying like, hey, like do you want to come? And then like that's kind of like how you get hooked, I guess, because like of the vibe. I guess people continue going to raves because like the music and the vibes. But when you first get introduced, it's usually because like you're just curious, like you know, like want to experience new things. So I guess that's kind of like the reason.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Will. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I feel like for me, like my parents were very like not really that conservative, but like they were pretty strict on like the way you like present yourself and like how you present yourself. So they will always like kind of say be quiet and like lower your voice and you know just not make such a ruckus. So like going to raves is just like a time where you could really like express yourself like how everyone else said, and listen to music at such a loud, like it's so loud and like it's like an out of world experience because you could never like actually do that at home or like where your parents are, or you know.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, you can continue.
Raves for some people it's considered like a passion, similar to like how our cultural clubs have all of these like food events or like Asian night, like China night. People just like discover these and then they just like spread the word and tell their friends. And then some people actually like have a routine of going to like all the events for certain clubs and it just becomes like something they're like passionate about, I guess. So it's not like a sense of like rebelling. It's like you're actually like motivated to go to these things because you like it.
Yeah, one last thing. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna go off of that, just to move away from the Asian thing a little bit. I'm a little bit biased, but EDM is just good music. The more you listen to it, the better the rave sound, which makes your music sound better, and then it's a cycle. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys all brought up good points about, I guess, themes of like doing things with your friends, which isn't necessarily related to being Asian, but I guess if your friends are Asian, then doing things with them would involve like bringing your friends to raves. Or parental themes. I also saw a major factor, I guess, like in terms of, I guess, the culture clash between your parents being a little more strict or from a more reserved background as opposed to the American side, which is more, I guess, individualistic and really getting to embrace like what you as an individual want. And I think that marks a good transition to our next topic, which is intergenerational trauma and Asian issues, which sounds pretty heavy hitting. But I think it's worth noting that I don't mean like, I guess, intergenerational trauma in terms of like things that are bad that has happened, but more so, I guess, examining the deeper roots of our Asian culture and how maybe biases or experiences that our parents or parents' parents have has affected how we view our world. So the first question, I guess, to sort of start us thinking is, why do you think Asian Americans want to be Americanized?
If you don't mind me going first.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I think it has a lot to do with like being young. I feel like when we're young, everybody wants to be the same. Everybody wants to be like that American, or like everybody wants to fit in with everybody else. But like once people grow older, that's when they're like, you know, like my culture and that kind of stuff, the things that make me who I am are also really cool. And then once we're older, this is like when we start wanting to experience this other side a lot more. But yeah, I think like when it comes to being Americanized, it has a lot to do with like being young and where you are and who's around you growing up.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Tyler. It's kind of like that sense of belonging in your like in school. Like you never want to be like that loser. You always want to be like the popular kid. So it's kind of like you always want to fit in with wherever you are. And I think that's kind of, it kind of ties into raves, I guess, because it's kind of like raves are a way of being Americanized, and that's kind of why like Asian Americans always kind of attend these raves.
So I guess in general, what do you guys think constitutes being Americanized, and how is that different from just being Asian?
I just want to say that for some people growing up, I don't think that some people would see it as if like they want to be Americanized. Like it's not like they're trying to be something. I think it's just so happened that when you were growing up with certain people, it just like they were just acting in the way that everyone's just acting around you, that you just find it to be like normal in a sense. So it's like you don't put a label to it. It just so happens that I guess like as people around you are acting a certain way, you kind of just allow yourself to act in that way as well. And I guess you were asking about how it's like different from like Asian culture.
If it is at all, because I mean, I guess we can all identify as Asian Americans, but do you ever see like there's a stark difference between being Asian and also embracing your American side, or has it been both? Like, if that's the case, that's cool too, and just want to know your experiences.
Well, personally, I grew up in a predominantly white school, so there weren't really like a lot of Asians. And me personally being Filipino, there were only like 3 other Filipinos in the entire school. But if there was one thing I would notice thinking about the cultures, I do notice that there's a greater celebration of being able to express, or just a greater celebration of the fact that you're able to like express your opinion, whether that be in forms of clothing or being in groups of other people with similar interests, things like that. So I guess like to be Americanized in a sense would be trying to act in a way where you're able to like find your own group of friends just to like be able to fit in.
That makes sense. I feel like growing up, also going along, I guess what Tyler said is just there's a sense of wanting to belong, or like to, I guess, conform to what's like cool at the time. And I feel like I definitely felt that way too. For me, like growing up, I didn't wake up one day and go like, oh, I'm Asian American. Like, let me just do Asian American things. Like, I feel like I was just me growing up. And then it wasn't until outside influences, like friends who are like, oh, like you eat with forks and plates. Like, that's so American. Or like other friends who'd be like, oh, like, how do you use chopsticks? Well, I guess like non-Asian friends were the latter comment. And then Asian friends who I guess were more Asian than me, as they like called themselves, would say the former comments. And so I think that's when I started to realize that I guess the world saw this as 2 different identities, where being Americanized meant not having any Asian traits, and then being Asian meant having all the Asian traits. And I guess combining that was like a little hard, because you could take pieces of like your Asian culture, like using chopsticks or speaking your language or eating the foods of your culture, and other things that are, I guess, typically American, like eating on plates or using forks, which is, I guess, more American utensils, sort of were like had to be combined together. So I don't know, has anyone else felt that way or have anything to share about that? Yeah, Will.
I just want to say, like, I guess, like, going back to the prompt, like, why do Asian Americans, like, want to be Americanized? It's kind of similar to what Kevin was talking about. I feel like it's not that we want to be Americanized. It's the fact, it's more like we want to be included into our community, and, or like feel like you can relate to the community. So for example, like, surprisingly, Kevin and I went to the same high school, which is in the middle of nowhere on Long Island, right? And if you are Asian, like, it was it was hard to relate to your friends who were not Asian, because like obviously like home life is different, like food is like everything that you see and like you experience is different. So in that sense, like we wanted to become more Americanized so that we could relate with them. But at the same time, like what you were talking about before was like how we're like kind of stuck in between, because like we're not white enough to be like white enough to be white, and we're not Asian enough to be Asian. So like that's how I feel like I've um adopted this identity of being Asian American, because like you don't have to be like American American, you don't have to be Asian American. Like it's okay to just be like Asian American and like have both traits. Does that make sense?
Cool. Does anyone else want to add anything else, or I have more questions to ask you if not?
I just want to add a little thing, just from like an immigrant's perspective. I remember when I was living in Taiwan, like American culture was like the cool thing, and I heard a lot of this from people who grew up in other countries too. American culture has become so big that everybody's trying to listen to Bon Jovi and Michael Jackson. We're a little behind, but wear jeans and stuff like that. So I think coming here, I was definitely very enthusiastic to just forget everything about acting Taiwanese and whatever, and just quickly adopt to being an American, because I just felt like it was cool.
Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Hi. Yeah, I want to like. Oh, you want to go first? Okay, but yeah, I want to add something like to what Will said earlier. How like we're not really like truly Asian or like American, because like when I went to China, really I went to a camp in China, and there they really all saw me as American. When I went there, they'd be like, "Oh, can you speak English? How do you say this in English? Oh, being American is so cool and all." And then meanwhile over here in my high school or anything, they're just like, so how do you say this in Chinese, or can you say something in Chinese? And so you really just don't fit in to either side. So you really just start adopting the Asian American identity, I guess.
And that might be a way to fit in too. I think for me, I think finding that identity, or I guess that label, or I don't know, box to put myself in, really made me realize that I could reconcile both. I don't know if anyone else has felt that way. I guess my next question is, how does your family heritage, or I guess your parents' heritage, play into how you see your identity? I guess while you guys think about that, I can share some of my side of the story. So my parents were born in Hong Kong, but they moved to America when they're 5 years old and 10 years old. So they basically grew up here. And I think a lot of the brunt of like being Asian and being American at the same time was absorbed by them, because they had just come from their home country and had all the language, the food, the culture, but then were thrown into American schools. And this was like the 1970s, 80s, a while back. So like there weren't that many Asians yet. So they went to schools that were predominantly white or Hispanic. And so they stuck out just because they looked different. But they were also picked on a lot. So I think once like they had me and my sister, we were, I guess, raised more American, I guess, because we didn't have to be like that buffer between coming straight from home, like the home country, to America. And I think they wanted to have us grow up in American culture and like eat on plates and forks, just so that we could feel like we belonged. I'm also still trying to think about how this affects my larger identity, but I think going to the intergenerational trauma workshop in ECASB made me think about it more. And I think tying it back to that, I feel like maybe because of the bullying that my parents experienced, because of their culture, they wanted to raise my sister and I more protectively so that we could, I guess, fit in with American culture as well. Those are my thoughts. Does anyone like have any similar experiences, different experiences?
I feel like I had a kind of different experience because my parents came here when they were in like middle school, high school. So they came here when they were really young too. But they made sure that in the household, like while we were growing up, me and my brother, like they only spoke Korean, and like stressed like our culture on us because they wanted us to hold it like and hold it deep within ourselves and like within our identity. So I feel like it's different from how your parents raised you more Americanized, while my parents raised me more like Korean, because they thought that the American side would always come from outside people and the environment. So they just, yeah, that experience.
Wait, so then do you speak Korean fluently then?
Growing up, like I went to Korean school for like 10 to 13 years. So like I do speak it, but it's not like fluent. Yeah.
Cool, thanks for sharing. Does anyone else want to share anything?
For me, I feel like it's very different from both of you guys. So my parents were, well, my mom was born here and my dad came from Hong Kong when he was like 4. So they were both already Americanized, I would say. So I'm kind of, well, people define second generation differently, but I would say that I'm a second generation American. And I'm really not in touch with like my Chinese heritage, and I cannot speak Chinese. I cannot speak Cantonese fluently. I don't know how to write it. I don't know how to speak it properly. Like I always speak in Chinglish, which is like a mix of Chinese and English. So I feel like I'm very out of touch with my like roots because my parents raised me very Americanized. And that's something that I've only noticed when I was older. So like when I went to Stony Brook and all my suite mates were Cantonese and they were speaking like Chinese and they were all different. I guess that's when I noticed it. That's when I noticed like the drastic difference. So
Thanks for sharing. I actually have a follow-up question for you then. So then I guess, would you say that was a reason why you chose to join CASB, or how did you find a way to connect with your culture?
I actually joined CASB like kind of on a whim, but I definitely in like since freshman year and all throughout college, I've definitely been trying to like relearn Cantonese and like try to learn through my suite mates and like people from CASB, like what are like some traditions and stuff. But I feel like it's definitely impacted me for like the bigger picture, like my bigger in life, because it's kind of like I feel more American than I do Chinese, if that makes sense.
I feel like that's relatable. And I guess for everyone in the panel, how did joining your culture org put you in touch with your culture? Did it reveal to you new things about your culture? Or I guess what were your reasons behind joining each of the orgs you're part of?
Personally, for me, when I was joining PUSO, it was a big wake-up call because I'd spent like the first 18 years of my life like in a predominantly white school, like not being able to find out anything about my culture and not meeting as many Filipinos as I would love to. Like, you know, for me, I was also an immigrant, so I came here with my parents when I was around 4 years old. So Tagalog is our native language, and that was my first language for like it was my first language, and it was the only language I could speak until sometime around elementary school when I had to like learn English. And when I first came here, I guess I'll tell you guys a story. Like when I first came here, the teachers thought I was like Spanish, and like since they thought that I was Spanish and I couldn't speak Spanish, they thought I would be placed in a special education program. So they tried to teach me like English and all that stuff. And it wasn't until like third grade until I was actually like able to fluently speak English. But the price I had to pay was to give up the culture that I grew up with the first few years of my life. And so like for the rest of my life until like I was 18 or 19, I felt very disconnected from my own culture. And that's when I stumbled upon PUSO in Stony Brook. And just to find a community of people who have very similar stories and like went through the same things that you have is very like eye-opening, because I never expected anyone else to like go through the same things that I went through. And for me, it was like it was kind of relieving to like know that someone else like went through the same things as me or had very similar experiences I'd had.
Cool. Do you just want to go in order? So Will, do you want to go next?
Kind of funny, but I also was placed into ESL even though I spoke perfect English. Our school district just be like that, you know. And then when I came to Stony, like why I joined ASA was, I guess, like coming from a predominantly non-Asian community and like shifting over to Stony, which is like, I want to say like predominantly Asian. Like it was almost jarring because like now you're just surrounded by people who like, as Kevin mentioned, we're like you guys share the same, we've shared the same experiences, and like joining ASA was just like almost having like a family away from home, in the sense that like we all share the same, like we also share the same experiences, but like I was able to grow closer to them because I mean, I don't really know why I joined ASA. I mean, like obviously like the people, you know, like ASA be great, but having like a close knit, I guess like Asian friend group or like group away from home is nice. Is nice. I'll end it on that.
Yeah, I feel that. Thanks for sharing. Stephanie, can we go to you now? Why did you choose to join VSA?
I think for me, growing up, my parents promoted like being American because they wanted me to fit in, and they themselves felt the pressure since they immigrated here. But I think so for a long time I didn't even know that I was Asian because like I never was taught like even that we had like different cultures. So when I realized that, it took me a while to be comfortable being Asian. And I feel like going to high school helped with that because I was surrounded by a lot of Asian people. I went to Brooklyn Tech, so it was like a lot of Asians. And then, but at the same time, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but like in like Asian, or at least the society that my parents grew up in, it was kind of looked down upon to be Vietnamese. So they kind of wanted to identify more with being Chinese because it was seen as like better since Chinese is a more like successful country, or like more people are Chinese. So they kind of preferred me to say that I'm Chinese, but at the same time, it was really like they were both born in Vietnam and they speak Vietnamese, not Chinese. And like basically my whole culture is Vietnamese, but the Chinese part comes in when my grandparents, like I'm also Chinese because my great grandparents were born in China. So it was really confusing for me to kind of identify myself with one culture. And I think I really wanted to join VSA when I came to Stony Brook because I want to get closer to that culture. And it was a big switch because in high school, I didn't really have any Vietnamese friends. And then it was kind of like me that would be like the only one who knows anything about the culture. So when I joined VSA, it was really like surprising to see so many people to relate with the same things.
Cool, thanks for sharing. Tyler, can you share why you joined JSO?
Throughout my whole life, like Japanese culture has been kind of a big part of my life. My mom was from Japan, and my dad grew up his whole life in New York. But yeah, growing up, I went to Saturday school up to about 6th grade learning Japanese, and then from about 2011 to about 2019, I spent like every summer at this place called Tokyo Frost Valley YMCA Partnership. It's basically a summer camp where a bunch of like Japanese or Japanese American kids go and speak Japanese like for like 2 weeks, and so some summer camp somewhere. I mean, it's a really cool place. And then so I spent all my time at this summer camp just hanging out with other Japanese people all the time. And a lot of people from the summer camp came to Stony Brook. So like Anna, Julie, Ray. I don't know if you guys know these people at all, but uh, yeah. So they came to Stony Brook, and so I was going to Stony Brook. So they said, join JSO, and that's basically why I joined JSO. Like people from the summer camp were in JSO. So
Cool. That's so interesting how you had like that community go from non-Stony Brook to like follow you through to Stony Brook.
yeah, like if I didn't, like if honestly I didn't have any friends from my summer camp who were in JSO, I don't know if I would join. I don't know if I would have joined. Just having friends there like helped, obviously.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, Tyler. Michael, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So for me, the reason I joined China Blue is really also just to be able to express my culture because when I was young, well, young as in like 2 months old, I was kind of just tossed on a plane and shipped back to China to live with my grandparents until I was 6. So from there, I was just extremely in touch with my Chinese culture. And then like I grew up, I came over to America, and yeah, once I was over here, I really didn't know how to speak English. I just did not fit in at all. So it wasn't until like second grade where I could actually speak English and talk to people. So after that, it was just like slowly making my way uh, to high school, and because the high school I went to was actually mostly white, so really not too much Asian culture there. So kind of just came to Stony Brook and then saw that, oh, there's actually a huge Asian population here, so maybe I should join a club to see if I could express myself a little more.
Cool. And did you find a way to express yourself and get in touch with your culture?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because China Blue, everyone's so friendly there. It's just really fun being there.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Charles, do you want to share why you joined TSA?
Yeah, I had heard before I came to school that TSA had a lot of internationals, and for me that was just like, oh, it's my people. Let me go see my people. And then I realized how different I had come from my people. Uh, I was like fully Asian American now. I've gone through like from 4th grade all the way till high school graduation, and I wasn't really trying to become an international kid. I just thought I could bring Asian American community and the Taiwanese international like traditional culture side a little bit close together, because I think even to this day it's kind of a problem we're trying to solve, is that the internationals are so different from Asian Americans that it's kind of hard to bring those two together. But it's been a problem that we've been trying to solve, and it's one that I'm interested in helping. So yeah.
What would you say is the main difference, since you've, I guess, in your club have observed that a lot, is the difference between like international students and people who identify as more like Asian American?
I think it's hard to encapsulate it into one like idea or one like specific difference, but I guess it's just the way that we grew up here make us like a little bit, our demeanor ended up being a lot different from the people who grew up in Asia. And I think as a result of that, I can't really describe in words like the demeanor difference between the two, but as a result of that, people generally just want to hang around people that are similar to them, that act similar to them. So rarely are you going to find people that want to go out of their comfort zone and find like a completely new group of friends, like an international wants a new group of Asian American friends or the other way around and such. We have gotten that a lot, luckily, in TSA, but I think it's just not permanent. It's not something that people want to consistently do it over and over again. So, yeah.
If I can ask another follow-up question, then why do you think that people tend to not want to associate with people who are, I guess, not of the exact same background as them?
I don't think, I think nowadays people don't deliberately exclude themselves from people who are different from them. It's just, at the end of the day, if you're going to pick some of your closest friends, people you're going to talk to every day, you're going to pick the people who are most similar to you. And that's what like long-term like relationships form from that, not from I don't know, just be in a club with somebody that's wildly different from me. I don't know. I just think it's not very permanent. I think people definitely try to make an effort to meet the people and like develop relationships with people different from them. But just naturally, I know this comes from me as well. I don't. It's just hard to be with or like be friends with somebody long term that's so different from you. I don't know.
Interesting. And I guess for the other two panelists left, Lauren or Emily, how have you found similarities with your culture org or differences? And do you like have the same sort of view?
Wait, can you repeat the question? Like, I don't think I understand it.
Yeah, no problem. So for, I guess for you, for CASB, like, do you find that you share a similar culture to the rest of your org? And I guess we talked about this a little earlier in terms of how like you, like your journey and getting in touch with your culture. So I guess like, do you relate to like connecting to people who are similar or different? And also, why did you join CASB?
I think, well, I joined on a whim kind of, but I definitely don't regret it. Don't regret joining because it put me in a group with people of similar backgrounds to me, and I think that's kind of what Charles was touching upon. So it's kind of like I like it because I can relate to like some of their life problems or like their like things that they've experienced in life. And I think that there's a lot of similarities between the people that are in CASB, and I think that I've also learned a lot because I was raised like more American than I was Chinese. So I've definitely learned a lot. Like they always teach me different like words in Cantonese and different traditions, which I really enjoy.
Lauren, do you want to add anything about your experience with KSA?
I agree with Emily. I feel like it was just like a place where a lot of people are similar and they appreciate like the Korean culture, but I feel like we're not all similar. It was like everybody brings something new to the table too. Like it was just interesting how so many people from different backgrounds appreciate the Korean culture because not everyone is Korean, and I thought that was really fascinating because I kind of joined like randomly. Like I saw a post on Facebook saying come to our GBM, so I went and I actually really enjoyed it, so that's why I decided to join. And I actually really like it because I could stay in touch with my culture even in college and really just be in tune with it.
Thanks for sharing. So in terms of, I guess, people finding an interest in your culture, like have you found like that has sort of built a community in a way in terms of like whether or not it's people who share the same Korean culture as you or people who simply have an interest in it? Like what does that community look like?
It's just cool to see a variety of people from all different backgrounds just coming together because of the Korean culture. Like even in our events, like so many people, different people show up, and whether they already know about our culture or it's like a new thing for them, like they come and support it, and it's just cool to see how like their reaction too. Like they sometimes like it, sometimes don't, you know.
Cool, thanks for sharing. So I guess I can share why I joined CTC if you guys want to hear. For me, I also kind of relate to what Emily said about not really being in touch with my culture, and I think CTC was a way for me to learn a lot of phrases and traditions that I didn't normally participate in. And I think like growing up, I didn't realize that how many aspects of Cantonese culture I was missing out on. And then Cantonese Club just exposed me to that. So I guess I'm thankful for, I guess, being pushed to learn more Cantonese and speak the language. So I think that's like my biggest takeaway from, I guess, being part of a culture org. But I guess on a larger sense, being part of a culture org, like you don't have to necessarily be of that culture to participate in the culture org. And that was like where I was getting at with my question to Lauren, because she mentioned that people showed an appreciation towards Korean culture but weren't necessarily Korean. And so I guess like in terms of like a larger Asian American identity, like how has you finding appreciation or like spreading awareness about your culture connected you to the larger Asian American community? And this can be answered by anyone, audience members, panel members.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so how has being part of your culture org changed or affected how you connect with the larger Asian community or Asian American community?
From TSA's perspective, we have like we try to bring the uniqueness of Taiwanese culture through our fundraisers this year, but we focus a lot on collaborations as well. And I think through a lot of those EDMs and meetings with other e-boards, we were able to find ideas that if there was a Venn diagram, we found like the middle sections, and a lot of clubs have a lot of differences that we didn't realize was a thing. Trying to come up with events for collaborations, and coming out of that, we realized that we are a lot more similar to other Asian cultures than we thought.
Does anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I agree because I'm in two organizations, and for one of the organizations, I'm cultural chair, and for ASA, I'm historian. But I feel like in ASA, you don't really need like a cultural chair because like the whole club, is cultural org. So like last semester, I held an event for both organizations, Meet Fresh, and like I never thought the worlds would collide, but like seeing both sides like work together, I realized like I didn't even think they were two different like organizations. Like I saw them as like a whole, and it was just nice seeing like orgs just come together for like different collaborations.
And so I guess thanks for sharing, Leisha. Does anyone else have anything to add? Or
me too.
Yes, Catherine?
So growing up, I went to a really white elementary school, and I think my middle school was majority Asians, or like a lot of white people also still. But it wasn't until I joined CTC that I really embraced like the Cantonese side, because like, Robin, like we were just called out the other day in the alum post about speaking Cantonese with the old alum members. And it wasn't until then that I actually learned to speak a lot more Cantonese than I originally knew. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for sharing, Kat. So I guess what I'm also wondering about is like how our experiences in our Asian orgs, like individually, has affected like the Asian American culture. Because I realized like there's in my time at Stony Brook, like I mainly devoted my time to CTC, but like I had the opportunity to join like events at PUSO or CTSA events or VSA and China Blue, or I guess like a lot of the orgs. And I've noticed that like while there are specific aspects of those cultures that relate to the country that the org is about, like in terms of food or language, there was a larger Asian identity, which I guess surprised me in a way because, well, I couldn't, for example, necessarily relate to Filipino culture. Going to the GBMs, like, and learning about Asian American issues or in the context of Filipino culture, it was really interesting to me because it showed that there are a lot of similarities between just like Asians in general. And I don't want to say that a lot of it is because of the stereotypes that we face, but I think the more I thought about it personally, the more I realized that maybe the Asian identity that we've been labeled with was either because since you're from the same geographic region, people who are not, I guess, from that, so I guess the majority, think that you're all similar. So I guess I'm wondering, like, do you guys see the larger Asian American identity as like a nice catch-all for people who aren't like Asian to identify just people who all have like dark hair and come from Asia? Or do you think there's larger similarities that we share as an Asian or Asian American culture?
Personally, I think there is a larger similarity between all the Asian cultures. Like personally for me, like I'm Filipino, and a lot of people like come up to me and say like I look Spanish, but growing up, I do see myself like leaning towards like advocating Asian culture, I'm still able to have that same feeling of celebration every time I see Asian representation becoming more improved in American society. For example, I'm pretty sure some guys grew up watching like Timothy De La Ghetto, and then over time, next thing you know, we're watching Crazy Rich Asians in the movie theaters. Like I felt so hyped. Like I was so excited to see that progression over the years, and to see like, for example, Andrew Yang come into politics and introduce his own ideas, becoming popular. Like I had that same feeling for Asian Americans, and I felt like I was part of that larger Asian identity, just growing up, just watching all this happen.
Thanks for sharing, Kevin. I feel like a lot of, I guess, the media also influences how we identify with a larger identity. So I guess that brings us really nicely to our next topic, which is discussing the present and future for the identity of Asian Americans. So I guess I'll just switch to that. Yay. So I guess, again, this is a question for like the audience or the panel too. How have events now shaped your view of your identity, like whether it's the media or current events? Yeah, we can just open up the floor for discussion.
I think going off what Kevin said, I think we definitely do feel like the bigger Asian community, because just like remembering how like I think the first time was like Jeremy Lin. I think all Asians felt really proud, and then Crazy Rich Asians, we were all very happy that a movie was coming out that was a full Asian cast. And then when the Parasite director won all those awards, I think all Asians felt really proud that we were being represented. So I feel like the more we're getting out there, the more people are motivated to express themselves. And yeah, it seems like it's going in a very good path.
Thanks for sharing. I definitely agree. I think having the ability to see role models or people who kind of look like us in media is really important. Like having that representation, I think, shows like younger generations that like we also have a place in American pop culture. Like you mentioned Crazy Rich Asians, I feel like that was like a pretty landmark moment for the Asian community because it like showcased a full Asian cast, which hasn't been done in I think like 25 years since Margaret Cho's like comedy. So I think that was like really cool. Or for me, like I thought that was really hype too. Does anyone else have anything to add about like Asian representation in media and how that affects like how they view Asian Americans in general or that identity?
I definitely think we're going towards a more like positive outlook for in terms of like Asian representation in media, because I remember like now it's more it's seen in like a better light, I would say, that we're like more represented in the media, because when I was younger, I feel like every show that I watched, there weren't many Asians. And when I was younger, I remember like my main role model was like Mulan, because she was like the Asian princess. But I definitely think that like in the future there will be, or I want to say that there will be more Asian representation in the media. And yeah, I think it's just going, it's like going up.
I definitely.
I wanna. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Charles.
I want to go off of that, and just the reason why I think it's heading in a good direction, which it definitely is because I think Asian Americans in the entertainment industry, not only are there more people working in there, it has turned from kind of Asians trying to be casted or pitch their idea to a predominantly white industry to becoming their own, to making their own things like the Crazy Rich Asians or all the Asian YouTube channels like Wong Fu. I think when we start to make our own thing and tell our own story our own way, it's a lot more relatable. It's less of what the predominantly Hollywood narrow view of Asians is, and it allows us to freely tell our own story.
Yeah, I think that's so important because like the more perspectives you gain, the more you realize like Asian culture or different individuals aren't specifically the caricature that's like portrayed in media, and like the more just like regular stories that are like shown to the world, I feel like continue to just depict Asians as regular humans, which I'm particularly interested in. I think one example of this would be the Netflix show Kim's Convenience. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. But I thought that was really interesting because it's basically like it follows a Korean American family, but they just go through normal people problems, and them being Korean is just like another aspect of them, but that's not like the central focus of the media. And I think for a long time, like I noticed that like Asians in media were portrayed as like being Asian was their main identity, but I feel like now we're moving towards more depicting like Asians just as regular people, and I'm really happy about that. I see you nodding your head, Stephanie. So thanks. Do you have anything to like add to that, or like any shows that you watch that sort of have that similar message?
Yeah, I definitely agree because I think.
Oh, I think you've muted yourself.
Sorry. I definitely agree with you because I think earlier in the media, Asians were always portrayed like as the nerds or like losers, or as just like for comedic effect, they just put like an Asian character in the show, which was not good for our representation. So I'm very happy that now we have a lot of like Asian American actors portraying us as like just normal people. Like our identity is not just whatever people think Asian culture is, and you can see like the rise like in shows like Kim's Convenience, and there's like a recent show Never Have I Ever.
Oh yeah, that's such a good show.
Yeah, and it's just a girl that's growing up in an American environment, but it's not like centrally focused on her being Asian. So yeah.
And I think like a lot of this comes like we see the focus in terms of media, but I was wondering for the panel and the audience too, like have you seen representation play a large role in like the industry that you chose to pursue, or like how has your career path been influenced by your background?
I guess I'll start. So for Filipino culture, it's very common for parents to instill onto their kids to pursue careers in healthcare, whether that be like becoming a doctor or a nurse. Like if you come up to um like a Filipino student slowly, like there's a good chance that their mom or their dad is a nurse. And from my undergraduate years, I spent my first 2 years pursuing a health science major with the plan of becoming a nurse. And for a while, I was a bit comfortable because after all, I was convinced that it was a stable like job opportunity to like become a nurse. But I felt like over time, like as I was taking these courses, I felt like I wasn't taking these courses for myself. I felt like I was taking these courses because my parents were telling me to, and I just didn't feel comfortable um, with that just in general. Um, yeah, Bio 2 or 3 definitely changed me too because I thought bio was pretty hard. Um, and so, and another thing on the side, I realized that in terms of growing up as an Asian American, it has taken a huge toll in terms of our mental health because I noticed that a lot of people would be conditioned to be growing up around these values and not realizing that there is a conflict of interest between their parents and the way they're growing up. And they wouldn't be prepared to, or like be comfortable speaking up for themselves, or at least addressing these issues like as they're growing up. So for me, it influenced my career by making me want to pursue psychology because I noticed that if a conversation is pushed forward towards Asian Americans who are going through the same problems, they like more people will be comfortable um, moving towards a direction where they're more comfortable with their identity. So that's what I have to say.
Thanks for sharing, Kevin. Does anyone else want to talk about how their career path was influenced by their background?
for me personally, my major is environmental studies right now, and so growing up, like my dad is always my dad who grew up, who's American who grew up here. He was always like, just do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. That's what you should do in your life, right? And my mom is a little more like traditional, but of course, like so when it came to time to choose like my major, it really like a big impact was me going to my summer camp because like I know my mom sent me to the summer camp so that I would hang out with Japanese people more often. But like me going to the summer camp also made me like realize like I really love like the environment and nature, and that really is the reason why I chose environmental science to begin with. So like my mom's reason was it's cultural, but my reason was like just this is like a passion of mine that I've gained along the way. And because environmental science has science in the name, my mom kind of put her like okay on it. If it was something else, like my sister older than me, she tried to do like paleontology, don't make that much money really. So my mom kind of put her X on it, but yeah, that's like the reason why I chose my major and like my career path.
So I think you touched on some like themes that I feel like relate to my life too, and I'm not sure if the panelists want to speak for themselves too. But like I think my parents also wanted me to choose a career path that was stable, as in making enough money that my parents were okay with, and definitely a focus on science too. I think like in my household, sciences were seen as like a more practical major, and like no matter what you did, as long as it was like in a STEM field, like that was, I guess, where the money was at. So I was like heavily encouraged to pursue STEM growing up. And I don't know if anyone else has heard this too, but like there's like a paradigm of like you have to be either like a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, and like you can only choose those things to like follow your career path. So for me, like I feel like I struggled a lot with that because I felt like I leaned towards more like creative things, and trying to like reconcile that and please my parents by like pursuing a STEM based major was something really hard for me. I guess for reference, like my major is linguistics and my other major is technological systems management. Linguistics does not fall on that like 3 thing at all. So for me, I feel like that took a lot of courage for me to like decide that I wanted to pursue. And I think a lot of it, like a lot of the reservation I had for like declaring that as a major was because of growing up. Like I had this like emphasis on like needing stability and like a practical major. I don't know, has anyone else felt that way? Or I guess, can we go around and say like your majors or something? I see you nodding, Kevin. Thanks for the validation. But yeah, like Lauren, what's your major? And I guess, how did you choose it? And did your background play a role in it?
I'm an engineering science major, but I'm trying to switch to information systems. But originally, I was trying to be a computer engineering major because my dad was a computer science major and my brother is a computer engineering major. So I thought, like, why not? But I don't know, like, I feel like my background definitely influenced me to choose something to do with computers and engineering. But I don't know if that's my passion, so I can't say that I want to do it. I'm still figuring out what major I want to do.
That's okay. Like, you have tons of time to figure it out. Thanks for sharing. What about you, Emily? What is your major, and did your background influence that?
So growing up, my parents were also like very Americanized, so they were like, you can do whatever you want, like whatever will make you happy. They didn't really push the like engineering, doctor, or lawyer onto me, and they were kind of like, just figure out what you like to do. So I started out as an engineering BME major because in high school I really liked robotics and I was really into engineering. But like throughout my course of college, I really enjoyed taking science courses, so I switched. So now I'm a health science major and I'm doing nursing. But I don't know per se if my if my career path was influenced by like my cultural backgrounds and my cultural roots, because my parents were kind of like, just do anything that you want. So I think that that's kind of more of the Americanized approach, because as like an Asian, I feel like they do force you into that, like you have to do something that is stable and that will get you like a good paying job in the future. But for me, I don't think that was my case.
Thanks for sharing. I think you bring up a good point about like, I guess the Asian versus like Americanized upbringing. And I guess I didn't realize it before, but like, I guess it's a more conservative like thing for the doctor, lawyer, whatever the last one was, engineer, breakdown. And I think like a more American style is like trying to just figure out what makes you happy, or like finding your passion or something. And I guess like as I went through college, for me personally, like I noticed that there was like a difference, I guess, in these like set of expectations. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because that just made me think a little bit more about that. What about for you, Charles? Like, what is your major, and did your background affect it or not at all?
My major is electrical engineering. I would say I'm a little bit more indirectly affected because my parents didn't really pressure me to do anything. They, they said I could be whatever I want, but definitely the way I grew up. My dad is a math professor. All my uncles are computer science EE people. So I think just the way I was brought up, the way I was taught to think and everything kind of just pointed me towards something to do with math and engineering. And I think in high school, I was just like, I'm pretty good at physics. EE seems pretty nice. Elon Musk is pretty impressive. Let me try to be like him. So I picked EE.
So then I guess like in terms of role models, then like since you had so many people in like math or computer science in your background, like would you say that that's what influenced you too? And I guess for everyone in the panel, like would you say that like seeing people, I guess, of a similar background to you in the career paths you chose might have influenced it, much like how I guess Asian American representation in media like encourages us to just showcase ourselves as regular humans?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. It was definitely because of the role models I had growing up, because when I would do like other stuff that I thought was impressive in other subjects like art or English and stuff, and show it to my dad, he didn't really understand it. So I would get a lot better reaction if I showed him like a problem I solved or something. And that kind of just made in my brain that I was like, oh, math is harder, more impressive, and is what's going to make me stand out. So
thanks for sharing. Michael, do you want to share a little bit about your major and your background?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a comp sci major right now, and I was definitely more pushed into this major, like because my parents really wanted me to get that stable job and make all the money, like you guys were talking about before. So I'm definitely on that end of the spectrum, because originally my passion was actually in biology or environmental studies or something to do with that, because I love nature and everything. So I guess, yeah, my Asian culture really just kind of pushed me into computer science more.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Stephanie or Will, do you want to share your background too?
I guess my parents really pushed for me to do something related to like the doctor, lawyer, engineering field, because like that's like all they know, as in like I think everyone already mentioned the fact that like what our parents really hope for is for economic stability for us, at least, because like at least my immigrant parents, like when they moved to the US, like it was to secure like a future for their offspring, which is me, and they know what it's like growing up like financially unstable. So I guess they wanted me to um not have this, like not have to go through the same for like the future generation. So that's why that's why they pushed me to be a doctor like super hard. But because like they don't really know what it takes, and like they just know that like their friends and like all their children like can become doctors or lawyers or engineers, and like they've seen success, like they've seen that their friends' children are successful, so they want the same for me. But I guess they don't understand like not everyone can do that. So I guess that's why like I kind of pursued pre-med for like the majority of my college experience. Like I was pre-med until like sophomore year, and after about 2 or 3 in Orgo, you know, I switched to like something that I'm actually passionate about. Oh, I forgot to mention. So I'm doing health science on the pre-physical therapy track, and even though it's still like in the health field, like the sciencey field, like my parents are still kind of against it because they don't really know anything besides doctor, surgeon, engineer, lawyer. But yeah, to like bring it full circle, I guess I was pushed very heavily to do something that I wasn't very passionate about at first, but it was because like my parents just wanted me to be like economically stable in the future.
Thanks for sharing, Will. I feel like, yeah, I think all like parents at the end of the day, like whether they like have a more Americanized philosophy or Asian philosophy, is that they just want their kids to be happy. Stephanie, on to you. Like, can you share your major and like how that's been influenced?
I'm a business management major and I minor in creative writing. So the choice that I made to make this major and minor was something that was kind of hard because my parents did push me to pursue something in science or engineering for a long time, and I pushed myself to do that in high school. And it took me like a long time to realize that I can't, like it just wasn't something that I was passionate about, and I didn't want to be in a career where I wasn't happy in because it's a big part of my life. So I think I originally was gonna major in chemistry, and then I made the decision to like switch to business and minor in writing, and my parents weren't really happy, but I just tried to focus on like what would make me most happy, and yeah. So I guess it kind of made me focus more on what I was interested in.
Thank you for sharing your story. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and bring our discussion now to current events. As we all know, because we're having this over Zoom, we've all been affected by the pandemic that is COVID-19. And I feel like as an Asian American community in general, this has brought a lot of issues that we've been facing, like negative things, to the forefront. And so I was wondering if you guys had anything that you'd like to share about how COVID-19 has affected you or like brought to light some aspects of your cultural identity, or I guess like in terms of discrimination, if that's happened to you or people you knew as well.
I'll start, I guess. I saw someone in the chat earlier. They were asking if COVID was bringing the direction of the perspective on Asian Americans in a more positive or negative direction. I guess I'll start with saying that I think it puts us in a more positive direction because it brings about like a discussion amongst Asian Americans. I guess like when people react negatively towards Asian Americans in the situation, it kind of like sheds light on who it is that still needs to go through a discussion of like what it means for Asian Americans to be going through the situation themselves as well. I've noticed that in terms of my culture, as I mentioned before, a lot of Filipinos tend to go for a nursing profession. So my mom, like, she's a nurse. She's like a frontline nurse, like working in the hospital, and she'd be telling me stories about like other Filipinos putting their lives in like almost endangered to save other people. And for me, it kind of made me more proud in a sense that like my people are doing their best to help other people. And even though I may not be pursuing a like nursing career myself, like that doesn't mean that like I can't be proud of whatever it is that Filipinos are doing out there in the healthcare healthcare field. So it is bringing a lot of people together, and I know a lot of people are going through similar things, and I feel like after everything's over, we'll just have a more connected Asian community.
Thanks for sharing. You bring up some good points. I never really thought about it. Like, I think the way this question was asked already showed like a bias towards, I guess, negative impact of COVID. But I guess like you bring up a really good thinker about how it could be positive too, in terms of connecting people, and I guess showing pride that people of your culture are helping others. Does anyone else want to add anything?
I guess another positive is that it exposes all the people who are still racist, even though it's 2020. It's kind of crazy how people are still this racist towards Asian people, even though it's 2020. For example, like people be making all these TikToks and like commenting on like oh, like the China virus and all this stuff, and it's like it's a good way to show that there still needs to be discussion and like about like how Asian people are still like the model minority. Like it's okay to like shit on us, and like basically it's good because people realize that it's exposing the people who are still subtly racist. Does that make sense? Like, yes. And I'll end it on that because this is just too much tea to talk about.
This whole event is for spilling the tea, so thank you for that. Yeah, I do think that, I guess in terms of bringing exposure to, I guess, racism now could be seen as a positive, because like while racism itself is not positive, I guess like showing people that we're erring towards more tolerance now towards different cultures is an important thing. Does anyone else have other thoughts they want to share? Or if not, we can also open the floor up to the audience if they have questions or if they want to talk about things on their mind too.
Yeah, I want to say something. So for me, I feel like on like a bigger scale, like on mainstream media scale, I feel like it's definitely having a negative impact, because you see how all these news articles are calling it the Chinese virus or something, and even our president is saying, oh, it's not racist because it originated from China. I'm sure everyone has seen that video. But yeah, that's like what the mainstream media is doing. They want to do that just so they can make money. So they're really just putting the bad story out there. But I feel on like a local scale, it's really actually having a pretty positive impact, because it's actually bringing the community together. Like me and my friends and their family, they're all going like, oh, are you okay? When you go out shopping, when you need to, are there anyone being like discriminating you? So on like a local scale, I feel like it really does bring people together, but on like the mainstream scale, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like there's definitely a difference between like the national, I guess, view and then like local, like one-to-one individual relationships, in terms of how COVID has affected everything. I don't know if you guys are part of these groups too, but like I've lately found myself like in like being added to like groups called like Crimes Against Asians or like Next Shark, I think. And I don't know if like you guys have experienced this, but I think like for me, the major like effect I saw of COVID-19 and it being tied to like being a Chinese virus was predominantly negative. Like I'd see these hate crimes happen to people that I didn't necessarily know, but were members of like an Asian community. And that just really shocked me. Like whether it's like their non-Asian neighbors like setting trash cans on fire in their yard, or like being like discriminated against or called names in the streets when they're like commuting to work or something. I guess like has this happened to you or anyone you knew, or do you guys have anything to say about that?
Nothing has happened to me or anyone that I've known yet, I would say, but I feel like this like COVID is definitely gonna like stay with us. Like this racism is definitely gonna stay with us for a while, and it kind of just makes me skeptical about my safety in the future, like when it is safe to go outside. I know that I feel like I would be able to defend myself, but I'm worried for like older people or like my grandparents who can't necessarily defend themselves against like an attacker, or if they were to suffer from some racism. And also, it's kind of like they won't even understand what's happening because they don't speak English. So, yeah, I'm kind of worried for like the future.
Yeah, that definitely, I feel like, not to be like on a somber note, but like I also have like a similar worry too, just because I feel like on the news there's been a lot of negative exposure. Like I've been following like the New York Times coverage of it, but some countries are trying to like band together to call for reparations from China for like starting the virus. And I think that has been on the forefront of my mind because being someone who identifies as Chinese American, well, the Chinese part comes from China. So I feel like even though like I don't see any relation to how like a person's ethnicity could be responsible for an entire virus, like because that is my country of heritage, like I feel like it also affects me in some ways that like on an international level, like China, the country, is receiving a lot of like bad press or is like the point of aggression because like they're being blamed for this virus. And I guess like on a local level, I have also like I can relate to what Emily said. Like I kind of fear for my safety. Like I think I can defend myself too. I don't know. Haven't tried to fist fight, but I feel like for older people, like our grandparents, like that might be something that they struggle with moving forward. Does anyone else have anything to share? Or I don't know, this is like kind of a heavy topic now.
Hi. Can I share something?
Yeah,
I don't know why
sure.
I'm upside down, but hi, I'm Anna, and I'm like from JSO. Sorry, I'm upside down, but so I just wanted to share like something that happened to my dad. So like before, like people were saying like, oh, COVID's kind of bringing together like the Asian Asian community together. So my dad actually like faced racism at his workplace. So he like he came into work when like the lockdown started. He still had to go into work, so he went into work with like a mask on, and one of his colleagues like saw him and then like slammed the door shut and like walked away. So he was really upset about it because he was like that didn't happen to anybody else. So he brought it up to his coworkers, like the other coworkers, and they were like, oh, it's just a joke, like you're overreacting to like getting the door shut like on his face. And like he brought it up to HR, and HR like took it seriously and was like, oh, we're gonna like take action against the person that slammed the door on you. But like it kind of like brings into perspective like people don't really take like the racism that people are facing seriously. Like, oh, like it's a joke, like calm down. But like for him to like be able to take action kind of like brings like the problem forward. Like it's not a joke, it's something serious. So like you have to come together. And it's like not just the Asian community. For like him, like his like coworkers like saw the problem after it was like brought up, and then like that just like made his like stance like stronger, I guess. So like that's just what like I wanted to share.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Anna. I feel like that makes me so mad when people like choose like a current event to act in like a racist manner and then just laugh it off as a joke as if that could excuse their behavior. I'm sorry that happened to your dad. That's really
Yeah, he's fine. Like he could like for my dad, like he could stand up for himself and like be like, this is a problem. So like he was able to like face it and like resolve the issue like within his community. But like yeah, there's like people out there that like can't stand up for themselves, like that grandma and like that like the Asian American like grandpa that got like assaulted on the bus or something. Like those people are like the vulnerable population in this like COVID racism and discrimination. So that's why like groups like us have to like stand up and be like, this isn't okay. Like if like people don't stand up against them, if they can't stand up for themselves, then like we have to like come together as like a community to like stand up for like the people that are like more vulnerable. So yeah, that's just my story, I guess, or my dad's story. I didn't do anything.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. So I guess, does anyone else have anything to share about COVID, or I can move on to our last questions?
Like, can I say one last thing?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to say that I like how we as a people of color community in general have been standing up for like have been exposing the people who have been racist, specifically like Twitter and like or like Black Twitter, where they like find these racists who think that like what they're saying has like no impact, and then they just expose them for who they are. And it's like, it's good to see that like people aren't getting away with like being like disgusting human beings. Just wanted to, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really great now that we have communities that can like call people out for behavior that's definitely not appropriate. I think like that's a nice part of, I guess, seeing a community come together, like not for the best of circumstances, but still seeing a community come together to like show, I guess, what we stand for is really important. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left of this event. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for the panelists or for each other, or does anyone have anything to share about anything we've talked about today, from like COVID to representation in media to our families affecting our outlook, or raves, anything?
I don't really have a question, but I just find it funny. I think I saw this in a TikTok and I was like, wow, TikTok be woke sometimes. But this girl was like, she was mocking people just for like going like, oh, these things are not open, the gyms are not open, the nail salon's not open, I want to do my nails, I want to work out, whatever. But like really, they're just asking for people who worked in those jobs to like get out and like just like put themselves in harm so like they could like experience these, like pleasures that they used to have before. Yeah, so that's
That's interesting. So like how does that I guess like does that affect the Asian American community specifically, do you think? Or like was this
well, I feel like there's a lot of Asian Americans that do work in small businesses or just other things in general, and a lot of people want things to be open, but that would put a lot of people in harm. And a lot of times like Asian Americans are involved in certain jobs. There was another video where people were protesting, right? And then like nurses were blocking the protest. I'm like, why do they need to do that? Like they're trying to like help people, but you're still protesting about it and you're like, oh, everything's fine, but it really isn't.
Yeah, I feel like this time, like just how people respond to the pandemic has exposed like both the really, really good sides of humanity, where people are like being selfless and putting others first, but also it tends to expose also really bad sides too, where people don't understand how their selfishness might put others at risk. So thanks for sharing that, Victoria. Does anyone else want to add anything, or this is your chance to ask us any questions or chat, share your feelings, thoughts, impressions? I guess lastly for me, I think like in terms of, I guess, seeing the light side of COVID-19, I'm quarantining at home with like my parents, and this is literally like the most time I've ever spent with them. And I feel like and I feel like it's sort of, I guess, increased our relationship, where I like talk to my parents a lot, because I don't really do that as much when I'm on campus. And so like, have you guys noticed that like for your own selves? Or has there been any positive impacts on being in quarantine? And how has that, I guess, changed your relationship with your family, if at all?
I recently learned how to cut hair, and my dad would get like a buzz cut before I came home, and he was really desperate for a haircut. So I was like, "You want a haircut?" And I gave him a haircut, and I left the top, like the basic fucking haircut. Sorry, wait, cut that out. The basic ass haircut. And then I asked my mom, I was like, "Oh, do you think this looks better?" So now he has a new haircut, and I think we're a little bit closer because of that. So yeah, that's that.
Wow, what a sweet story. Hey, thanks for sharing. Does anyone else have any other questions or thoughts, or even like opinions on the panel or anything? Anything on your minds?
This is like about the family question, but I think because I spent so much time with my family, there's been habits and like things we say that we pick up from each other. And I'm like, Dad, I get this like annoying, like ass like argument stuff because of you. And he goes, oh no, like, and like it's just an argument. I'm like, oh, I'm spending too much time with you. I'm acting like you is crazy. Like I can see myself in you. And he'll like try to play it off as if I didn't learn it from him, but I feel like this quarantine has made it very obvious that I am just like my dad, and it kind of hurts.
Wow, for better or for worse, what an insightful revelation. Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm coming my parents too. I talk to them 24/7. I see them every single day for like hours and hours on end. But I guess for me, I'm also trying to find ways to branch out. Like, I think now is a great opportunity for me to call my grandparents like every day, just so I could practice my own Cantonese, because I guess I see like my Cantonese language lacking a bit. So I think with all the time I have now, I'll be calling them more to just get that practice in, and also still like keep connected to my relatives as a result. But yeah, if anyone doesn't have anything else to add, this will conclude our panel. This is the first time the Cantonese Club has hosted like such a large discussion like this. So thank you to all the panelists who offered their time and their experiences. I really appreciate it, and thank you on behalf of CTC as well.
Everyone should unmute themselves to applaud, because this silent applaud is not it.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. I hope that you guys gained some insight on Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage or history, and I guess like you come away with some thinkers and stuff. I really had a lot of fun doing this and talking to all you guys. So yeah, hope you stay safe and that you guys enjoy the last week of school. Yeah, and have a good summer.
This was fun. Thank you for hosting, Robin and CTC.
Thank you for hosting.
Aw, you guys. All right, take care.